The neighborhood was silent. Halloween was over. Pumpkins on porches had burned down to stubs. Candy wrappers blew across the pavement, and one by one, porch lights flickered off, signaling the night had ended. Inside a small two-story home at the edge of the block, Emily Carter tucked her 8-year-old son Noah into bed. His pirate costume still clung to him, glittering with sequins, his candy bucket half spilled on the floor beside him. She smoothed his hair, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "Sweet dreams, champ. The night's all done." But the night wasn't done. Not yet. When Emily came downstairs, she turned off the porch light, locked the door, and settled onto the couch with her blanket. The house felt heavy with that particular kind of quiet you only get after a holiday, when the world outside is gone still. Then the grandfather clock in the hallway began to toll midnight. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 12. As the last chime died out, a sound split the silence. Knock, knock, knock. Emily froze. Her first thought, too late. No child should be out now. Her second, then who's knocking? She crept toward the door, her bare feet cold against the hardwood. The porch light was off, but something about the knocks felt wrong. Too slow, too deliberate. Not playful, not normal. When she finally pressed her eye to the peephole, her breath caught in her throat. The porch was empty. Halloween had ended. The streets of Willow Creek Lane were quiet now, stripped of laughter and squeals, stripped of costumed children darting from door to door. Jack-o'-lanterns that once glowed with mischievous grins had burned down to flickering stubs, their carved faces sagging with the weight of melted wax. Candy wrappers drifted across the pavement like autumn leaves, catching in the gutters where shadows pooled. Porch lights winked out one by one, signaling that the night of revelry was over. Inside a modest two-story home at the end of the block, Emily Carter moved carefully, her bare feet whispering against the hardwood floor. Upstairs, she had just tucked her 8-year-old son Noah into bed. His pirate costume still clung to him, glittering faintly with sequins from his plastic sword. His pumpkin-shaped bucket lay tipped over at his bedside, a treasure chest of sugary loot spilling out onto the carpet. Emily had kissed his forehead, smoothing back his soft brown hair. "That's enough candy for tonight, champ," she'd said gently. Noah had groaned in protest, but his eyelids were already heavy, his small body sagging into the safety of sleep. Now downstairs, Emily allowed herself to finally breathe. She wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, settled into the couch, and listened to the stillness of the house. There was a peculiar silence that followed Halloween, the kind that felt deeper than usual, as though the world itself exhaled after all the chaos. She reached for the remote, thumb brushing the worn plastic buttons, but paused. Something about the silence felt different tonight. The kind of different that made the hair on the back of her neck prickle. And then, the grandfather clock in the hallway began to toll. Emily's head lifted at the sound. The old clock had belonged to her grandmother, its carved wooden frame looming tall and solemn in the corner. The chimes rang out, slow and deliberate, 12 times in total. Midnight. Emily realized it had been years since she had heard the clock strike 12 while she was awake. She glanced at the darkened windows at the empty street outside. A shiver ran through her. She pulled the blanket tighter. That was when it came. Knock, knock, knock. The sound jolted her upright. It was sharp, deliberate, echoing through the silent house. Her breath caught in her throat. She glanced at the darkened front door. Too late. No trick-or-treaters should be out this late, she thought. Her heart began to pound. It wasn't the playful rapping of a child, or the careless knock of a neighbor. No, this was slow, heavy, intentional. Each strike of knuckle against wood sounded like it carried weight, like it demanded attention. Emily rose cautiously, the floor cold beneath her feet as she crept toward the entryway. The porch light had been switched off long ago, but a faint glow from the street lamp spilled across the door, outlining its frame. She paused, listening. The silence afterward was even worse than the knock. It felt like someone or something was waiting. Finally, she leaned forward and pressed her eye to the peephole. Her breath froze. The porch was empty. Emily pressed her eye harder against the peephole, refusing to believe what she saw. Or rather, what she didn't see. The porch was empty. No kids, no teenagers. Not even a late-night neighbor fumbling for the wrong door. Just a bare porch washed in a thin layer of moonlight. The candy bowl she had left outside sat untouched, its colorful wrappers glinting faintly in the dim glow. She exhaled shakily, half laughing under her breath. It's nothing. Just kids being stupid. She slid the chain lock across the door and turned away. But as she stepped back into the living room, the sound came again. Knock, knock, knock. This time it was louder, so sharp it rattled the frame. Emily flinched, her body tensing. Her throat tightened as her heart thudded against her ribs. From upstairs, a small voice carried down the stairwell. "Mom?" Emily turned sharply. Noah stood halfway down the stairs, his pajama shirt rumpled, eyes wide with sleep and fear. "Who's at the door?" he whispered. Her voice was gentle but tight. "No one, sweetheart. Go back to bed." But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. Someone was there. Someone who wanted to be noticed. Her curiosity, mixed with a gnawing dread, dragged her back to the door. She hesitated only a second before leaning forward again, her eye meeting the peephole. And this time someone was there. A small figure stood on the porch, perfectly still. Its back was turned, shoulders hunched, head bowed slightly as though staring at the ground. The costume it wore looked ancient, not like the colorful superheroes and princesses she had seen earlier that night. The fabric was gray, tattered, shredded as if it had been left in an attic for decades. The child's arms hung limply at its sides, unmoving. Emily's skin crawled. Every maternal instinct screamed at her to protect Noah, but another part of her, a human part, whispered that perhaps this was just a lost child. Maybe a cruel prank, maybe not. Her lips trembled as she called through the door. "Are you lost? Do you need help?" The figure didn't answer. It didn't move. The silence stretched so long that Emily thought maybe it hadn't heard her at all. Then, slowly, almost painfully, the head began to turn. Emily's heart stopped. The figure's neck twisted at an unnatural angle, as though its bones resisted the motion. When the face finally came into view, her stomach flipped violently. It wasn't a normal face at all. It looked like a mask melted by fire, its features warped and sagging, one side drooping like wax left in the sun. Where the eyes should have been, there were only hollow sockets, empty yet filled with an awareness that pinned her in place. Emily stumbled back from the door, her breath catching in her throat. She clapped a hand over her mouth to stifle the scream rising inside her. Behind her, Noah's small voice trembled. "Mom, who is it?" Emily couldn't answer. She couldn't speak, because deep down she already knew. This wasn't a child at her door, and whatever it was, it had found them. Emily's hands shook as she backed away from the door. She grabbed Noah, pulling him close. His small arms wrapped around her waist, trembling. She whispered, "Stay quiet, baby. Stay with me." They hurried upstairs, Emily shutting her bedroom door and locking it with shaky fingers. She pulled the phone from the nightstand, dialing 911 with a surge of hope. Static. She pressed the phone to her ear harder, pacing the room. Nothing but a distorted hiss filled the line, a sound like wind howling through broken wires. Her chest tightened. No service now. She lowered the phone, dread washing over her. And then, the front door rattled. Emily froze. The sound carried clearly through the silence of the house. Someone was twisting the knob, testing the locks. Metal scraped against metal as if something sharp was prying at it. Noah whimpered, clutching her sweater. "It's trying to come in." Before she could answer, the rattling stopped. For one terrifying heartbeat, the house was silent. Then, knock, knock, knock. But the sound wasn't at the front door anymore. It came from the back of the house. Emily's blood ran cold. She crept toward the bedroom window and peeled back the curtain with trembling fingers. The backyard was drenched in pale moonlight, but nothing moved. No intruder, no child, just a swing swaying gently in the autumn breeze. Then came another knock, this time from the side window downstairs, and then another, and another. It moved around the house, deliberate and steady, circling them. Like wolves stalking prey, Emily pulled Noah closer. His small voice quivered. "Mom." I think it followed us. She crouched down in front of him, gripping his shoulders. "What do you mean?" He sniffled, tears welling in his eyes. "When we were trick-or-treating, I took candy from that old house, the one with no lights on. You told me not to, but the bowl was there. It didn't look like the others. The wrapper was weird, like old." "I'm sorry," Emily's stomach dropped. She remembered the street, That one lifeless house with boarded windows, no pumpkins, no lights, no laughter. A place kids whispered about but never approached, and Noah had taken candy from it. Her mind raced. It isn't just someone at the door. It's something that came with us. The knocking grew louder, echoing from every wall, every surface of the house. Windows shuttered, glass rattling in their frames. It felt as though the entire house was under siege. Emily pressed Noah against her chest, whispering, "Don't look. Don't listen. Just stay with me." But she couldn't ignore the truth pressing down on her. Whatever was outside wasn't trying to get in. It was already here. The knocking stopped. For the first time in what felt like hours, silence blanketed the house. But it wasn't a peaceful silence. It was heavy, suffocating, as if the air itself was holding its breath. Emily clutched Noah tightly, straining to hear her heartbeat thunderous in her ears. Then came a sound that made her blood run cold. Creak. The basement door. Emily's eyes shot wide. She knew she had locked it. She remembered sliding the bolt just hours ago. Yet now from downstairs the door groaned open slowly on its hinges. A cold draft drifted up through the house, carrying with it a smell of damp earth and mildew. Noah buried his face in her sweater, sobbing softly. "Mom, don't go. Please don't go down there." Emily's mind screamed to stay put, to barricade the bedroom, to wait out the night. But something deeper stirred within her. She was a mother. If she cowered, if she showed weakness, whatever this was would take everything from her. She knelt in front of Noah, brushing tears from his cheeks. "Listen to me, baby. You stay here. Don't come out no matter what you hear. Do you understand?" His little head shook violently. "No, you can't leave me." She kissed his forehead, her own tears slipping free. "I'll come back. I promise. But I have to keep you safe." With trembling legs, Emily crept out of the bedroom. Each step down the stairs groaned beneath her weight, echoing into the vast silence. The house seemed alive now, breathing with her, waiting. The basement door yawned open at the end of the hallway. Beyond it was only blackness, thick and impenetrable. She forced herself down the stairs, gripping the railing, her breath shallow. The basement was icy, the kind of cold that seeped into bone. Her bare feet pressed against the concrete floor, rough and damp. And then, she saw it. In the far corner, half swallowed by shadow, stood the figure, small, childlike. Its head bowed, shoulders slumped as though waiting. Emily's voice trembled, but she forced words out. "What do you want?" The figure's head lifted slowly, revealing its warped, mask-like face. Hollow eyes locked on her. And then in a voice like dry leaves rustling across pavement, it whispered, "Trick. Or treat." Emily's chest seized. Her instinct screamed at her to run, but another voice rose louder, one of compassion, of defiance. Her hand shook as she reached into the candy bucket she had brought down without realizing. At the very bottom lay the piece Noah had stolen from that house, the candy wrapped in crinkled old-fashioned paper. Emily dropped to her knees, holding it out with trembling fingers. Her voice cracked, but her tone was steady. "You can have it. But please, leave my son." The figure tilted its head, studying her. Slowly it reached out a skeletal, shadowy hand. Its fingers brushed hers as it took the candy. For a brief second Emily saw it. Not a monster, not a demon, but a lost child. A boy no older than Noah, his face soft and human, his eyes filled with sadness. Then, like smoke in a gust of wind, the figure faded. Gone. Emily collapsed to the floor, gasping, tears streaming down her face. For the first time all night, the house was still. The first light of dawn crept through the thin curtains, washing the living room in pale gray. Emily sat slumped against the front door, her arms wrapped protectively around Noah, who had finally fallen asleep against her chest. Every muscle in her body ached, but she dared not move. For hours after the encounter in the basement, the house had remained silent. No more knocks, no more whispers, just silence, deep and heavy, broken only by the rhythmic sound of Noah's breathing. It was over, or at least she wanted to believe it was. When the grandfather clock struck 6, its chime startled her. She lifted her head and blinked at the faint glow seeping around the edges of the curtains. Dawn. Somehow, they had survived the night. But then she noticed it. The candy bowl. It sat on the porch where she had left it the night before, empty except for one object. Emily slowly opened the door, her heart thundering. Cold morning air brushed her face, carrying the scent of dew and fallen leaves. There, gleaming faintly in the weak light, was an old tarnished coin. It looked ancient, its surface etched with strange, almost childlike markings. She reached for it cautiously, her fingers brushing the cool metal. The moment she touched it, a chill rippled through her body, and then voices, faint whispers like children laughing in the distance, carried on the breeze. She turned sharply, scanning the quiet street, but there was no one. Only empty yards, overturned pumpkins, and shredded Halloween decorations fluttering in the morning air. Emily held the coin tightly, staring at it. It wasn't a payment. It was a message, a token, a warning, or maybe a thank you. Behind her, Noah stirred, rubbing his eyes. "Mom, is it morning?" She forced a smile, brushing the hair from his face. "Yeah, baby, morning." He looked past her at the porch, at the coin in her hand. "What's that?" Emily hesitated, then closed her fingers around it, slipping it into her pocket. "Nothing you need to worry about." But her voice was softer than she intended, almost reverent. Together they stepped outside. The street was bathed in the golden blush of sunrise, the world once again ordinary. Neighbors were beginning to stir, cars starting, coffee brewing. To anyone else, it was just another morning after Halloween. But Emily knew different. She felt it in the coin pressing against her palm. She felt it in the silence that lingered in the air, a silence too deep to be natural. As she looked back at her home, she whispered to herself, not all knocks should be answered. And though the night was over, Emily understood one thing with chilling clarity: the creatures, the children of the dark, were still out there, watching, waiting. But she had faced them and lived, not through violence, not through strength, but through something far more powerful: compassion. The thought didn't comfort her, not entirely. Yet as she held Noah close and guided him back inside, she realized that perhaps compassion was the only thing keeping the shadows at bay. The grandfather clock ticked steadily in the background. The house stood quiet, but Emily knew with every beat of her heart that midnight would come again, and when it did, she would be ready.